Добрый день, уважаемые.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants and viewers. Those of you who are watching this broadcast, sorry for this slight delay, but now all technical glitches have been fixed and we can start. My name is Sergey Fadeev and I'm today's moderator. Inclusion and ethics in digital space. First, a couple of words about Culture 2.0 project. This is an ongoing project hosted by International St. Petersburg Cultural Forum, and this is its educational part. An open lectorium, this is what it is, reviews new reality that is transforming every day. Culture 2.0 focuses on technologies, both virtual, social practices, physical, inclusive, educational projects, etc., etc., many other projects. A series of Culture 2.0 events are taking place in October and November. Now a couple of words about our discussion, inclusion and ethics in digital. It's quite obvious that 21st century is the age of modernized information and communication technologies, large-scale digitalization and high-tech devices. Digital tech are used daily in all spheres of human life, in work, education, cultural enlightenment, communication and recreation. The role of modern technologies is so great that the digital space must be made as comfortable as possible for all users. And we have already past the starting point when all digital technologies are being now introduced on a mass scale. So now the goal is to make it as convenient as possible to all users, regardless of their age, physical and psychological health. Digital tech should facilitate social adaptation for the disabled, helping them to fully participate in public life. During our today's discussion, we are going to discuss how to create a safe and convenient space for all users, how to take consideration all the requirements for all users, and how to create an ethical digital product. Now I'm going to present our participants. Sophia Alexanderson, Director of Share Music and Performing Arts, based in Sweden. Sophia, good afternoon. Yekaterina Men, President of Center of Autism Issues, Education, Research and Protection of Rights. Yekaterina represents Russia. Diana Andona, Polytechnica University of Timișoara, Romania. Maria Parfenova, fundraiser at a charity organization Teacher for Russia for dyslexic children from Russia. And Robert Sachatsky, as director and scenographer from the Academy of Fine Arts in Gdańsk, Poland. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for finding time to take part in today's discussion. All viewers will be able to ask questions on social media, and we are going to have a poll, and we will discuss the poll results. And should you have any further questions, please feel free to ask them. Now I'm going to pass the microphone to the first speaker. Each speaker has 5 to 7 minutes for his or her presentation to share your views about inclusion and ethics in digital. Sophia, if you do not mind, let us start with you. A digital round of applause to Sophia Alexanderson. I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. So thanks a lot for inviting me to this very important discussion today. So I'm here in Sweden and I'm a director for this organization, Share Music and Performing Arts. Today we are a knowledge center for artistic development and inclusion, and we are really working with how to make it possible for everyone to express themselves artistically in a world where difference is seen as valuable. And for us, that has been very important to find ways where disabled and non-disabled people can find tools and environment where they can create. So for us, technology has always been very interesting and also very important. It's been a very important way for us to secure that everyone actually can both create, but also that you can perform in various ways. So today I would like to share some experiences from our work. And due to this pandemic situation, we had to change our work, of course, like so many of us. And we realized that a lot of our target groups actually were isolated. They couldn't participate, they couldn't create and in the way we were used to do. So we organized workshops during the summer. We did a special project which was designed specifically to be run digitally, online, inviting people to create together. And here you see some images and results from this project. So during 5 weeks, we offered 16 workshops in different thematics like dance, animation, film, writing, puppet theatre, etc. The group came from all over Sweden. A lot of people signed up in different age groups. Everyone who somehow had some kind of way of feeling that they were isolated. And the whole project was around how to deal with isolation artistically. And besides this online way, we decided to gather the material in this little folder, which is filled with all the results people were creating. And for us, it was a really big challenge. How can we create a safe environment, making sure that people with very different abilities, maybe with no verbal communication, with visual impairment, could actually create together, because these people didn't know each other on beforehand. So we thought, okay, we need to record things, people can look whenever they want. But what happened was the online workshops, that was the central point where you could socialize, be together and do things. So people wrote a lot of things. Here is a poem. People around me live right now in the way that I always do. It's from a longer poem about the situation. A lot of interesting voices, because the idea was also that this booklet, which we have done, now is sent out to journalists, to politicians, decision makers, to actually making sure that the voice from the people who are in isolation can be heard today. And for a lot of disabled people, isolation is not something uncommon. It's there all the time. So we can also see that we are developing new ways of working, which we will keep, which we would remain, because it's possible. And we use a lot of other tools. So how did we actually make it happen? For example, making music. We use a lot of technology, a lot of different softwares, hardwares, apps, etc., which make it possible. Of course, today there are challenges like the latency when you do music. But in general, we try to find equipment which make it possible for everyone to participate, to contribute with whatever you can do, and which enhance your own voice in various ways. We even have an ensemble who's only focusing on electronic and digital instruments. This is Evelina here sitting, and she's one of our members in our ensemble Elephant's Ear. And it's an iPad ensemble, which we created a couple of years ago. This image is from a recent artistic lab we had with one of the orchestras here in Sweden, where we are trying to integrate musicians coming with different backgrounds, different abilities and different ways of playing and expressing themselves into more traditional ways, like a string orchestra. Using both existing repertoire, which is where electronics and strings, meeting this between traditional and non-traditional, but also creating new things. So they were actually leading work forward using their iPads. And we've been doing different projects together with this ensemble. And we do find it so interesting, but also challenging in many ways. And we can see this is probably the future for the musical world, for the orchestra. I mean, how will the new ensemble look like in the future? What will it be like when we incorporate new expressions, new ways of working, and also creating new types of music? So this is a little bit about how we are working, and we have lots of various ways, but it's always using people's, trying to find ways where people can feel where they can use their own potential, but they can use it, and they can use it together with others. So it will be on equal terms, because for us it's really important, and I think today's society is important. How do we make sure that everyone can participate and not being passive but actually being active? For us this is really much about participation. So I think I will close there for now, and let's keep on talking. So thanks a lot.
София, спасибо вам большое.
Thank you, Sophia. It was very educational and very interesting. So without further ado, let's hear from the next speaker, and it will be Ekaterina Men. She is the president of the Center of Autism Issues. And yes, I'm happy to see you all. Just 1 second, I'll open my slides. Is it all right? Can you see it? Yes, we can. I think I should start by saying that because of the pandemic, I am a little bit afraid of how much time we spend online. And the question that was put to us about inclusion, and I am specializing in inclusion issues. To me, it is a very important topic. And I wanted to speak about online technologies fostering inclusion, but to me personally, I see this fostering of life inclusion, not just digital inclusion. But I believe that the digital space should be a tool, just an addition to the reality. Reality of social interactions, social links, and that it will support these real-life links. It will stimulate them. And naturally, I am afraid by the experience that we've gained, this unique experience we've lived through, when we moved exclusively to the digital sphere, and we experienced how much we can lose if we refuse all the real-life connections, if we relinquish them, if we will live without any physical contacts in the best possible sense of this word. But nevertheless, so this is just some of my thoughts, maybe some questions for possible discussion. But still, I believe that digital integration and digital inclusion, well, I think we're all experts here today and we understand this area, but maybe our listeners are not as familiar with the topic. So, what I mean by digital integration? So, I think what needs to be created is free or very low-cost access. This is one aspect of inclusion. And the content should be very diverse. It should be available for everyone working in education, in cultural projects online, for those who digitalize libraries, work with literature heritage, both fiction and non-fiction. This is all very important. So content should be various, should be very diverse. And it should be presented in an original way. For example, as we see it in an offline exhibition. Another facet of digital integration is digital skills. For instance, my mother is over 80 years old, and I try to gradually and carefully get her to know internet and how to use it, because she used to think that internet is full of some very basic, very stupid things, and But now she sees that there are some options for education there, and we bought a laptop to her, so it's our family's task to get her to know the possibilities of the digital sphere. And I think the goal of digital inclusion is providing access to various products that are connected to the life. So health, safety, cultural consumption, work, all these aspects. So each facet of our life should be augmented, should be supplemented by something from the digital. And we should keep in mind that there are people who are now left behind, who cannot fully participate in the current digital sphere. So, and those areas of the internet that have culture and not just time wasters, not just entertainment. So people who are left behind right now are people from low-income families, elderly, refugees, migrants, people with physical or intellectual or sensory disabilities, people visually impaired, and other very vulnerable groups of population. I work with autism and with this issue, so my expertise lies in this area. And I appreciate the input of the digital technologies and how they help autistic people and help protecting their rights. There was a fundamental shift in this area. We see the vast difference in the life of the families with autistic children. If we compare 30 years ago and those who had such children 5 to 10 years ago, so the shift is radical. And there is a simple reason for that. Before, the autism was considered an enigmatic disease, very specific, very and just experts, some doctors working with autism knew about this condition. But through the internet, various people could learn about autism, both experts and just lay people. And on the one hand, it provided a lot of information for scientific studies, but at the same time, it helped to reconceptualize autism. It used to be considered an illness, a disease, but today it is still, we can say, a problem, but it is a social, psychological, multifaceted issue. It carries certain status for people. So we view autism in a very different way today, in a broader way. And it happened because of digital inclusion. And autism and the digital sphere. This topic is huge. And I can't dive into it too deep. But we know for sure that design, universal online design, is sometimes is suitable to autistic people because it's more functional, it's more unified. There aren't very bright colors usually. It's more coherent. Information is structured, it's organized very clearly, very simply. So we use the type of information presentation that is suitable to an autistic brain, which is very interesting. And I wanted to share just one project that inspired me. It's called the Art of Autism. It is a big project. It started in 2005. our center, the Center of Autism Issues, is not a participant yet. But we have a foundation, and we hope that our artists, young artists, will be included in the project. About 50% of the council of this project is autistic children. This is a big project. They have a blog, they are active in social media, they have exhibitions. So it is a platform where autistic people can communicate through art and express themselves through art. And this non-commercial organization had a project with Apple. They had an online gallery, and Apple provided a lot of apps, a lot of technologies for drawing, for creating images. And this is a very interesting example, because this is an example of opportunities for autistic artists and also writers. So this is an option for this creative outlet, and people enjoy it immensely. And I enjoy watching these paintings, these pictures. I just included several pictures here to share with you. They are unique, wonderful, and some of these artists don't even speak, but they express themselves through art, and I think it is phenomenal. And at the end of my presentation, I wanted to quote one of the experts who said that the impact of the internet on autistics may one day be compared to the spread of sign language among the deaf. And indeed, I agree with this quote, and I hope and I would like this digital sphere to develop and to give more opportunities to autistics. But at the same time, I hope that it will also transform the physical world, the real world, the world of real-life connections. Because when we speak of ethics, I think it is primarily formed in the live communication. Thank you very much, Ekaterina. And you started the presentation by saying that we have too much things online, and I think we all agree with that. And perhaps it's not a problem yet, but it's a little bit frightening. And I think we will touch upon this topic today, and what we managed to achieve online, and how much of it can be transferred offline. Let's continue our discussion, and I'll give the floor to Diana Andone from the Polytechnical University from Timișoara, Romania. Diana, the floor is yours.
Не слышим сейчас.
We can't hear you.
To see
Возможно,
if I can share my screen,
появилась.
and I'll do that now. Thank you so much for this. So I'm coming live from Timișoara, Romania, which is, and I'm representing this university, which is the University of Polytechnical University of Timișoara, Romania. So, am I live? Just nodding somebody. I can't see you.
Да, Диана, продолжайте, мы вас видим и слышим.
I will speak today about improving inclusion with digital culture, so the digital skills and digital heritage. A brief presentation, which is a bit different than the speakers before me, because I will speak about digital technology and how this can be used in a lot of, culture and also heritage areas, but also towards education, towards improving the quality life of people with disabilities or with people with social or digital challenges. Because I'm not looking, when I'm speaking about social inclusion, only to people with disabilities, but I'm looking at people which have economic challenges or who are not very well accustomed with the digital world, and that's making their life quite difficult. As I said, I'm coming from the Polytechnical University of Timișoara, which is in Romania. And we are celebrating next week 100 years since we have been established. And my main area of my work and presentation, beside of the teaching and distance education, is on creative industries. And here you can see what are the creative industries as they are described by the European Union. And you have here some information where you can go and get some more details about what the European Union does in terms of creative industries, and also how they support through the Creative Europe program and the Culture Action Europe Association also programs and funding, the funding of all of these projects which I'm speaking about. We are always looking to the creative creators. I don't know if you are familiar with that. Tom Friedman in 2011 established that the creative creators are the workforce of the 21st century. Those are the people who need creativity, ingenuity, and also responsible use of digital technologies to be able to find a better job and to live a better and more social life. So for this, the European Union has established the digital competence framework for citizens, which we call DICOM 2.1, and which is usually illustrated as a swimmer who is swimming in the digital sea of information. And you have more information on the website which I mentioned. So all of our projects and work recently have been going around this idea on how we can improve the digital competencies and digital skills of all people, starting with kids, but mainly with adults, because a lot of our research has been showing that adults, and not necessarily old adults, but also young adults, have huge problems on using digital technology adequately, so correctly, to be able to integrate it and work with digital technology. So for this, we built up an Erasmus Plus project, which is an education project funded by European Union, with partners which are coming from all over the Europe, and which represent also very large universities and smaller associations and also cultural organizations. And for this project, we were planning mainly to build up some courses and a virtual learning hub where all the people can go for free and openly to learn about digital competencies and digital skills. Now, why we are doing this online? A, because it's easy, and B, because a lot of our adults, which we were inquiring during our project, told that they would like to use online learning to be able to learn more. It's quite difficult for them, especially if they have different challenges, to come to a single location and to learn this in a class or something like that. So this has come very easy and very handy now, because we were able to share all of this information online. So for this, we built up 13 courses, which are for free online, which we call the DigiCulture courses, which are gathering subjects from the internet and World Wide Web to digital curation, to digital safety and security, to ethics, to how to build up social media and digital audiences, to obviously mobile and augmented and virtual reality, and also some more practical ones for those which are looking into funding or how to advertise their arts and culture, digital management, digital communication, and digital media tools. So for these courses, we have a platform which is online, which is in all partners' languages. So unfortunately not in Russian, only Lithuanian, which is the nearest one. But we are looking forward probably to have a Russian partner to be able to translate everything in Russian. And it's for free, offered for free in the Unicampus environment. What is included in these courses? There are a lot of open educational resources, which are for free available online. Best practices coming from the countries, in different countries in European Union, and not only. Culture and technology use, and how you can use technology and culture jointly together. Some examples of digital artists and some study cases. At the end, every participant who will graduate these courses will receive what we call digital culture open badges, Open badges are a framework which is the first part of blockchain technology, where you receive a certificate and a digital credential which you cannot fake, and it's available online, and you can also share in social media or other networks, and it will be forever with you. The other project which I will briefly speak is the Spotlight Heritage Timișoara project, which is a project which we were doing together with the Timișoara European Capital of Culture, which was supposed to be next year in 2021, but it's going to be in 2023 now, as was recently decided by the European Commission. And this project is jointly done with the National Museum of Banat, and it plans to bring culture and heritage from Timișoara closer to our population, but also to people with social difficulties or economic difficulties, but on the same time also to encourage tourists or people to learn something more about the heritage of our city. Timișoara is called the Little Vienna, is a very beautiful old town in the west corner of Romania. So what we were doing, we built up some sort of digital storytelling around all of these buildings. And we were doing this through a digital website, a mobile application, which has also augmented reality included into it, a museographic exhibition, which is at the National Museum of Banat, a street exhibition with points, a lot of things. We have a video which shows all of this, and you will be able to see it online. Quite difficult to play it now here. And also with young people's active engagement in reclaiming their cultural heritage, which is an important bit of this. And you will be able to see also something about this, because we have been adapting all of these building stories with the stories of the people who lived into them. So in one neighborhood, we have the story of a doctor which lived almost 100 years ago, and she's telling from each place, from each building, how the life was 100 years ago. Then we invited a lot of other communities representatives from those neighborhoods who told the stories of their communities in that neighborhood. Because Timișoara has 14 different nationalities who are living in Timișoara. We had stories from Hungarian, Germans, Jewish, Serbian, Bulgarian, Russians, a lot Ukrainians, which were telling how their life was and is in Timișoara in that. So all of this is part of our information, and you have a video which you will be able to watch. I'm going to go over it because it's quite difficult to play it, and I'm going to close now by letting you know that we had a lot of people participating into this project, into the Spotlight Heritage, which were coming with social and disabled disadvantages, let's make it like that, or disabilities. And they've been able to really enjoy through digital technology the stories of the past of the Timișoara heritage. Thank you very much, and you have all the information also online. Thank you.
Диана, и вам спасибо за вашу презентацию. Было очень интересно.
Thank you, Diana, for your presentation, and congratulations on the 100th anniversary of the university. And the video that you didn't show will be uploaded on the website of our project, and everyone would be able to play it online. And we are moving on. Maria Parfenova is with us today. She's a fundraiser at a Teacher for Russian charity program. Maria, I give you the floor. Can you hear me? Yes, we can. My presentation isn't going to be full screen because I need to also have a look at my notes. Unfortunately, I cannot present without them. The topic of my today's presentation, it just demands me to use my speaking notes. Can you hear the presentation? Can you see the slides? Yes, we can. Please continue. So, my name is Maria Parfenova. I'm responsible for fundraising at Teacher for Russia, and I also have dyslexia. And so I have troubles with reading and dysgraphia, and also ADD. Don't be afraid. This is a standard set, standard package, so to say. So I know from my own experience how hard it is to enjoy culture without the assistance of technologies. So I'd like to tell you how we can make culture more accessible to every 10th child on the planet. We live in an information age, but even now, the majority of the Earth's population needs enormous efforts to be, well, has extreme. It is extremely difficult for many people on the planet to read and write. They need to make an additional effort to do this, and this sometimes leads to stigmatization, because people think that it's so easy to learn how to read and write. But unfortunately, it isn't so for everyone. And people with these challenges sometimes feel ashamed that they cannot do something that other people can. So I'm going to talk about reading and this way to consume information. Because reading is an essential skill for everyone who wants to enjoy culture. So what can we do? How can technologies help people with dyslexia and dysgraphia in schools, museums, and other workplaces? I enjoyed Yekaterina's presentation, and Diana's rather. And well, actually, this slide was already shown by Sophia, but unfortunately, many things that have been mentioned are not implemented yet. I'm not saying that modern technologies will cure all problems for people with dyslexia, but they definitely make it easier for myself and for other people. First, we're talking about font here, the fonts and the way the information is organized in your browser, in museum labeling systems, in libraries. It actually is a game changer. This font is called Dyslexia font. It is used in many countries, and we also have Russian versions of this font. The biggest difference from the traditional fonts is that the lower parts of the letters are heavier. So that's all those small parts of characters that people like myself confuse, are more readable. So characters are more distinguishable. For instance, if the letter B is heavier at the bottom, I will not confuse it with the letter D, because the letters are different. They are not mirror reflections of each other. How this can help museums? Well, the British Museum has had some experience, and actually the Hermitage used simpler fonts for their labels, and they didn't use traditional black and white arrangement, white background, black letters, but they used more creamy color for the background, which again makes it easier to read such texts. What else can we do? Well, there are different programs for reading out the text. Like, there are programs that help autocorrect what you type in. We can also provide more information as videos and infographics, not as texts. And it can be used in both schools and museums. And it's good to see that art is following suit of technologies, so without any external impetuses. I see that many museums are making their exhibitions more digital, even in the cases where museums exhibit traditional paintings, for instance, traditional art. What else? Awareness raising. Parents, educators, we need to teach them. It's faster and easier than any reforms that still need to happen. What I'm talking about here is the fact that museums and NGOs can make something much quicker for a person. They can organize, arrange a project, allowing people to learn something or learn themselves and what's wrong and not wrong with themselves, thus improving the quality of their education and the ability to absorb information. Museums can host education projects. They can raise awareness through art and through lectures, more traditional formats. It can be done online, and it is advisable to organize such things online as well, because this eliminates the borders. So a Moscow-made project, a project made by a Moscow museum, can be helpful to people and educators somewhere in the Russian Far East or in the northern Russia, helping children to read and write better. So education through art is a wonderful thing. I wanted to show you a video that a British student made, and he explains the way dyslexics read. If you Google dyslexia art read, you will find this video online and you will be able to watch it. This is a good example. It illustrates how this education and awareness raising works. I also found this example of commercial companies doing things like this. This is a McDonald's ad that, as part of the Dyslexia Awareness Raising Day, made this sign. They developed a code that changed letters, so it shows you how it can be sometimes difficult to read just a McDonald's menu when you are waiting for your turn, waiting in line. When I'm talking about these issues, issues of education for special children, I cannot but mention gamification. Well, it's so good that more and more libraries are going digital. They are digitizing their books and documents, and the existing technologies will add nicely to these digitize texts. When I was studying abroad, I came across an app that could download a text and read it out aloud for me, and that was very handy. I have a friend called Valya Bekaredov, and we use speech synthesizer that he developed himself, because Valya has a muscle dystrophy, atrophy. He cannot touch, he cannot type, and this way we can communicate. Even though 2 years ago, when Vanya was 19, he didn't talk to anyone, he didn't communicate to the world, but now he can use this text-to-speech technology to communicate. This is just a case that shows how technologies make it more accessible for everyone. I work in a charity program, Teacher for Russia. You probably have heard about Teach for All, Teach First. It exists in 53 countries in the world. This is a model according to which experts from various fields are engaged to work in ordinary regional schools in small towns, villages, where sometimes it is hard to find a teacher at all. And sometimes such simple things as a projector can make a huge difference, huge impact, because people, children, will be able to watch not just films, but also plays, theater performances, something that they wouldn't be able to watch. And this is it for me. Thank you, Maria. That was very interesting. It's so good that modern technologies are becoming a part of everyday life, and something that was accessible, available to Stephen Hawking is now available to everyone. And it's good that online helps to pool the efforts of all people all across the world. I've watched a podcast recently with Yevgeny Grishkovets, and I learned about the that this is indeed a very global issue, and that all countries are trying to address. Thank you for the presentation. Now, Robert Sachatsky, scenographer, director, Academy of Fine Arts in Gdansk. Robert, from Poland, could you please tell us about your experience in inclusion? And I know that you have a special stance on digital ethics. Please.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm really glad to be part of these discussions. I'm glad that I have the chance to saw and heard your presentations. When I saw how digital, how technology make our life easier, yeah. But my point of view is a little bit different, because I'm artist, and most of them what I focus on is not practical point of view, but much more philosophy. Then when I see the place between technology and culture, I ask myself what we can, how we can explore, how we can describe reality. For example, now we are really most important time this year, special 2020, because from this time, we first time change point of view how we can describe reality. What is exactly? Because before, technology was like support for us, make life easier, we make exclusive accessory by technology. We find augmented reality, something what make wide our perspective. But now we put everything exactly our daily life to internet, and now we turn on our life. And from this point, we start looking not to back, like say it Lacan. We can come back to previous time we have to imagine our new life, new reality. And for example, now we say it that something happened online, something happened offline. If we start thinking that previous normal life now is offline, let's change completely our perspective to play with new technology. For example, before we have heritage, we have old school, like we put our experience in the past, in our history, and we have old people like guide in our life. Now, when we have the marriage with new technology, how you say, Ekaterina, we have to help old people that now young timers are guide tour in life for all timers. You know, this is the play, because now we change our life, we change our reality, because especially in this year is really it's marker time to display with this point of view, how we change our life and how we change our point of view from computers, from technology, from online. There is real life to normal life, what I mean offline. And this is the point of view. A second is that before we have a lot of interaction between us, and everything was like man to man, human to human. It was a little bit like analog interaction. Now most of them is by internet, by technology, and this is the interaction post Anthropocene. This is the relationship between human and non-human, and this is the completely different between before and them. And I ask myself, what happened and how we can manage display, especially in culture 2.0, if we start looking for normal life that is offline. You know what I mean? This is the completely different figure when we start thinking that life is online, but when we turn off, we have something offline that we turn off. That's it. This is my impact to this discussion, because with this, we change completely our mind and point of view for all technology, and we start thinking what exactly we include to digital. That's it.
Роберт, спасибо вам большое.
Thank you very much, Robert. I think it is very important. What used to be normal became abnormal. And I think it is the time that we turn to online technologies and make this a space for both young people and elderly people to unite. Maybe a new synergy will form, because right now I don't see a lot of tools online to unite. And the recent experience and various social networks, they seem to divide us. Especially, there are certain sites that older people prefer, and teenagers like other social networks. So we see this division, and maybe there are some common points where we can unite. Thank you very much to all, Sofia, Ekaterina, Robert, Diana, Maria. This is just the beginning of our discussion, but thank you for your individual presentations. And now we move on to the general discussion. If you have a question or a comment, please switch on your microphone, and I'll start the discussion. And we have a poll in our social network, and the question is, does your culture institution have inclusion programs? And some answered yes, there are inclusion programs. Almost 45% people said yes. 30% said no. And 25% said it's hard to answer. They don't know. Maybe you want to comment on this poll. And I don't know if who are our respondents. Are they from various countries or just from Russia? But I think it is mainly European users who were answering. And I think the picture is overall is clear. I think the pandemic became a driver, and perhaps before the pandemic there were no inclusion programs, but now there are more and more of them. There were several questions posed at the beginning. For instance, how to create a convenient digital space for users. And I wanted to ask Diana, because she is the person who works with such platforms. In your opinion, what the internet lacks today? What should be added? What the most popular platforms lack in terms of inclusion?
In terms of inclusion, the most important part is the accessibility. There is a standard which was developed, in fact, 15 years ago by the World Wide Web Foundation, which is called W3AC, which is the guidelines for accessibility for the website. Unfortunately, a recent statistic which was done 2 years ago showed that only about 17% of the websites online, which can be found easy, through the search engines and so on, have a full accessibility features. So only 17% of the website can be accessed by people with disabilities. This has changed a bit in the last years, mainly because a lot of accessibility issues are similar with the responsive design issues, which means that you can access through your mobile phone your website. And a lot of websites have changed to this because nowadays the access online is mainly mobile. Not necessarily only through social media, but also navigating online is done through mobile phones. So a lot of websites have been aware of this, and the major search engines online have, send warnings to a lot of websites, telling them that your website is not accessible, cannot be read through through mobile phones, and that means that you need to adapt and change it. So a lot of them have done it. I don't know of any recent data about this. So mainly that's the main issue is accessibility, not necessarily for people with disabilities. The other thing is safety, and especially as I was saying, the lack of digital skills in terms of safety and privacy, and how safety and privacy can be tackled, especially for people with disabilities or have a lack of knowledge of digital world, and they are very exposed, or they are very young, children, and they are really very exposed online because they don't know what is true, what is not true, where their data and their information and their images and videos are stolen and reused and so on. So I see two levels of accessibility. One is the web to be accessible, and second, people to know what they're doing online and to be aware of that. And that's basically not necessarily people with disabilities, but people which have not been either properly trained or educated, or they are in that place of the social inclusion. They might be from poor region, they don't have access to technology, they don't have nobody around them to tell what is good and what is bad online, and they just go online and do things which threatens at the end their own identity.
I see. Thank you. And my next question is to Ekaterina. It is like I'm building on what you just said. Ekaterina, in your opinion, do we have enough tools for any project or any organization that works in inclusion to use and to adapt the resources for people with special needs. No, we still have a lot ahead of us, a lot to do. I liked Robert's idea, which seems very simple, but at the same time it made impression on me, because it used to be that older people taught younger people and initiated them, but today it is reversed, and not just children form their own paths today, and they lead us adults along these paths to new worlds, to where the digital sphere occupies a much larger space. But also people with limited abilities also do this. And inclusion is a form of ethics. It is one of the facets of ethics. And what is truly inclusive is at the same time ethical. And to me, it is extremely interesting that people with disabilities, even severe disabilities, like Maria said about her friend, they were always in the position of somebody who required our care. So we were very paternalistic to them. We thought that we possess not just physical advantage, but also intellectual, cultural, and in terms of creation, our creative advantage. But the digital technologies, the digital world, gave an opportunity to these people to show that they can also form their own rules. They are equal. It's just we are on equal positions. And I think the essence of inclusion is expressed through these technologies. And we, those who can see and hear and move clearly and without any obstacles, it is very hard for us to understand the technologies and methods that people with disabilities need. They should be co-creators. There is this saying, don't do anything about us without us. So, access for people, inclusion of these people in creation and in design, so they should design the space where they will exist, design like the language, the science, the interfaces, the online interfaces. It is an important thing, important path. We need to understand that these people have agency. They are not weak people whom we need to protect. We should create an equal space, and they will be our guides. They will guide us to a greater inclusivity. And I don't believe that the current space is completely inclusive. So you see that there are still issues, but at the same time there are already some tools. So I have a question to you then. We need to understand that we are all equal, but as Roosevelt said, when you compare, you steal joy. And I have a question to Sophia, Maria, and Ekaterina. How can we stop comparing? How do we teach, for instance, a child with some disabilities not to look around, but to believe in yourself? We see examples of such people with personal strength, willpower, who are active, and who earn this ability for themselves. Let me briefly say that belief in yourself, I think it's built in the family, but at the same time, it is a reflection of how other people see you. Disability is a reflection of other people seeing you, and sometimes you see a horror in someone's eyes. So disability in itself is not scary, but some people view it as scary. So we need to change the environment. We need to change the spaces where people exist and those surfaces where people see their reflections. And if a person sees support, if they see that any person supports them, then it will be different, because we are all, our abilities are all limited for every person, but to a different degree, different extent. But we need to invest a lot into the environment, so the environment is supportive. Sophia, would you like to add something?
Yes, I would like to add. It's not only about the environment, I think, but it's also about what do we actually appreciate. What is the norm in our society? Because I think it's not only about thinking about integrating to something existing, but rather also to develop to something new. So we actually get that equal platform, equal society, where we do appreciate each person for its own unique voice, unique skills, unique potential. So it's a combination, and I think the art is really so important for this, because through the arts we have another language, we have a new ability to actually allow new expressions. And I think this is what we are lacking today in the society. We are very much fixed into certain spaces, to certain views of what kind of bodies we accept, what kind of how we look. So it's the media is playing an extremely important role in that. What are we showing today? So if we're going to adapt and change the environment, we also need to think about for who are we actually changing the environment, and why are we changing, rather than actually allowing the new things coming from. So it's this emerging of a new, which I think is very important.
Да, вы абсолютно правы. И вообще,
Yes, you are absolutely correct. And I think that globalization stopped. It seems like we are going backwards. I don't know if it's for good or for bad. So we should remember our roots, but at the same time, the global development, I think, is lagging behind right now. Maria, do you have any opinions about equality? Just an addition, an example. I absolutely agree about the reflection in society, and they say that if a child acts inadequately, then a child's inadequate reaction, it is actually an adequate reaction to some inadequate behavior towards this child. As a child who used to look around and who grew up and still looks around, and although I have the capacity to rationalize, not to be overly emotional, to keep myself motivated, but at the same time I still look around. I see what's going on. There is still such thing as norm. And all people seem to think that reading is so easy, writing is so easy. So what is norm and what is not a norm? And I think if we just move away from this notion of normativity, and we're all different, and we're all limited in some ways. For instance, I can't draw. I'm very bad at this. And maybe someone else draws beautiful pictures, but but sings awfully. So we're all different. And the further we move away from this normativity, and the closer we get to appreciating uniqueness, then the easier it will be for people to find their own unique place in the society. I think this is how we can stop looking around and comparing. And I think sometimes it's also the behavior of adults, conscious and unconscious behavior, and behavior of your peers. Because people still compare children, and they say, well, you can do this, why don't you do that? Why aren't you sitting still? Why didn't you solve this task better? Why aren't your grades better? And this all accumulates. And adults, they trigger certain children's behavior. And the healthier is the environment around the child, the health is the development, and especially in education. I think the fewer triggers we will have. Thank you, Maria.
Отметить, что мне кажется, что мы все вместе
I'm passing the mic to Robert now, and we all reached to a conclusion that environment is a major factor in ensuring equality and inclusion, equal opportunities. So I also wanted to say that our education, I mean, probably Russian education, but probably not only Russian, has a lot of inertia. It's not proactive. And organizations such as yours, dealing with inclusion and equal opportunities, can be the front runners here. Robert, could you comment on what we've discussed? And I also have an extra question to you, but let's start with our current discussion.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I heard from Ekaterina, we are now equal, because exactly I feel when we sit in front of our computers, our screeners, we are really equal. And another thing is that we are invited to be part of process to change our life to digitalization. For example, is this like a little bit opposite to globalization and digitalization. And this is the play between this and this. But when we saw, we have to go and to be part of this process, because this is the door to be our, reality between the people, and we have the chance to cross border and have to find another people which can help us. But indeed, we have to think about, I said, eco digital, eco digitalization, because you know what I mean. This is we try to do everything, and to put to, for example, to internet, or we make a lot of apps to make fun, but sometimes without this quality, without people who can guide us to change our, our reaction, our normal feeling, daily habits, our life is changed to completely destroyed aesthetics, for example. Like Diana said, now everything changed these things, the phone, because the trend is not just only computer. This is the everything what we have in our hands, exactly in between two fingers. Yeah. And then when I saw my youngest boy, my youngest son, he have 2 years old, but he knows how take the phone. We have the toothpick. I'm the old school. I use one hand and one finger, yeah. But he knows exactly that it's, and technology helps they people to use like this. This is the play, and this is the play between that we are now equal. Exactly. No, this is the conclusion for this.
Роберт, ну вы...
Robert, you have an excellent sense of discussion, and you feel what I want to say. Can I also add something? Because I just wanted to say that Robert almost anticipated what I was going to say next. I just wanted to say that this is a wonderful touch. You know, evolution theory, theory of evolution, we all know that opposable thumb, when it happened, it's made Homo sapiens, actually, because it changed the way Homo sapiens operated things, handled things. You know, we used to believe that a thumb is a useless thing. Several centuries ago, thumb was considered to be pointless, but it turns out that thumb opposable thumb was crucial in evolution theory. And this is getting back to what Robert said about operating your phone with two thumbs. Yes, the biggest problem with your thumb is that it's not as captivating as your gadgets. You know, gadgets are more immersive than your thumbs. Gadgets may not be as valuable as your thumbs, but you know, there were several Netflix films released on Netflix recently, and they speak about the danger of the digital. Robert, getting back to you, a couple of words about your background, because you did theater, set design, DJing, street performances, other art forms, and some of these forms are rather hard to do online. So on the one hand, we have accessibility, I mean for people with disabilities, but on the other hand, it may not be complete. What can you say about this?
So me and my wife, we asked ourselves last two weeks because she works on exhibition in Nigeria, and that will be digital, completely digital exhibitions. And we said how we can manage this kind of exhibitions without real room, and how we can imagine to present, for example, paintings or digital art together, but not like normal streaming, like normal website. How we can invite to people to have the access to the room with the paintings one hand, and other hand with the something 3D objects, or it's easy to put that link to download, for example, apps to your phone, and you know, have the filter for change reality to outside. Yeah, but how imagine to be part and feel that we are part, not just only, you know, front of something, because if we are just only front of this, we the same situation like in normal museum. We have the for example paintings, and here is the painting, and we try, of course, we try to find relationship between us, something, you know, personal, yeah, feeling. But on the other hand, with this technology, for example, you say at Netflix, that was the one example that we can choose which way we are going with the film, yeah? And that was the first step to try to do something. For example, my experience with the theater and technology was that many years ago, there came projectors, and they give us opportunity to do everything, exactly everything with this. And then, you know, everything is possible, and we change, we cross the board between what is in our imagination, what is real, what we can do it.
Ну, то есть инструмент.
So what you mean is we have the tools, and even now, when some tools are missing, if we work on them, we will have them. And people developing various technologies will be able to come up with something that would enable us to reevaluate things and see something anew and experience culture in a new way. Let's continue our discussion with Sophia. I know that your projects are also exported to other countries, so to say, and in Russia in particular. Could you say a couple of words about this? How hard is it to implement your projects in other countries, not just Sweden? And are there any specificities when you implement such projects in, say, Europe?
You're talking now during the pandemic, especially the situation in general, maybe, because now it's of course very difficult for us to do what we are used to do. We normally go to the countries, we do workshops together, and now we suddenly have to face these new ways of dealing with it. But we are quite surprised over how it's actually working in a very good way. And for example, we have been running courses now. We have been using a theatre director from North Russia who has been actually conducting theatre workshops for a group of disabled people in another country. And we have seen it's possible through finding a way where you have to somehow almost copy the kind of reality as where you're going to be. So you have to use the technology to support what's happening in others, so you feel like you are actually there trying to see what is happening, so you can follow the work, the process in various ways. So we are quite surprised to see that our sort of lack of physical environment can be replaced somehow by technology. But I also want to enhance that of course, we are looking for new ways, for new tech, which is about to just be developed to support this. So maybe going even further, not trying to replicate the physical environment, but perhaps going into virtual reality, going into new ways of dealing with it. But we like it so far, and we think there are ways forward. For example, I would like to mention in another international project, we have someone coming using sensors, which are very physical, where you can almost think what you're going to play or what you're going to decide. And of course, that is really challenging in a very positive way, where you don't need to do movements or to do things, where you can use your brain. And because we have these kind of tools coming up, I think they will in particular support disabled people wherever you are in Russia or in other countries. We can see it's a huge interest in specifically in developing tools for creativity among disabled people in countries such as Russia.
Понятно.
I see. Are there some specific programs that you've implemented and want to mention? Or are you working with existing programs?
Existing programs. I think one important part when we talk about technology is not only about using the technology, it's about how you use it, in what way. So for us, we use a lot, of course, of tablets, of platforms like this, but also very hands-on. It's about how you create, like the space, what will the camera show? Do you need to have additional things, additional camera, which can follow the people? There are those kind of things which I think are important. And then we use a lot of technology also, which is perhaps not always on the market, which is bound to be developed, which we have a very strong interest in, finding people who are interested in exploring new ways.
То есть разрешаете проблемы сообщения.
So you work together to solve common issues. I think it is very important. And my next question is to everyone, and you can answer if you want. I don't think this question is provocative, but nonetheless, which country you think is now the leader in inclusivity programs? Or perhaps it's too early to say. Maybe we're just at the beginning stage. Maybe you know some projects that surprised you in a certain country. Can I say? Sure. I haven't read any studies, but there are a lot of wonderful examples from Sweden. I don't know if it's the leader in digital inclusion, but when we speak about special education programs, I think I've never seen as many companies, programs, state programs, private campaigns. I think the Nordic countries and Sweden in particular are among the leaders, but it's just based on my personal experience.
Say exactly like Maria, and it's based on research, on academic research and data, who says that the Nordic countries are those which have more inclusion. It's also in policy level, so in law and regulations, and not only in workforce, but also in education and in accessible to culture, to public spaces, everywhere. And besides Sweden, also Denmark, but also Netherlands, have very strong examples of how inclusion can be done in terms of education mainly. Netherlands is probably the best with Finland, with the Finnish schools in terms of how education can be very inclusive of everyone, of everybody. And in terms of culture, I would say probably all the data is leading towards Sweden together with Netherlands, that they include in all their museums, in all their galleries, in all their public manifestations, a lot of examples and a lot of accessibility to everyone. So nobody's excluded in terms of that. And probably this is the future.
Nice to hear such nice words about Sweden. Yes, I think we are taking good strand of this, but I also think it depends on what you're looking for. I think I would like to emphasize, like Britain is very much into developing tools for creativity, for example. So some countries maybe have had a stronger interest in specific areas, which I do find very interesting, of course, and also. What is interesting is also those countries who allow you to use things which perhaps are not designed for what you are going to use it for. I think that's where we are looking for things. A specific sensor might not be actually designed for being a creative tool. Maybe it's supposed to be an industrial field, but you can actually use it in another segmentation of the world. And I think that's where we want to go right now, to look for solutions. So perhaps it's not about finding the best country, but to find the best tools which you can use in new ways.
Да, София, вы абсолютно...
Yes, you are absolutely correct. We need to find a comprehensive approach. Inclusion, I think in Nordic countries, inclusion is just part of the national doctrine. And I think everyone, when we speak about inclusion, Nordic countries come to mind. Ekaterina, would you like to add something? I'm not an expert to say who is better and who is worse. I'll just rely on my own experience. And I agree with Sophia. We need to focus on tools. And I know that in healthcare there is off-label. So when you create a drug, medicine for one disease, but it can be used to cure a different disease. It's the same with tools. When we are very attentive to the other side, attentive to those for whom we try to remove the barriers, for whom we try to improve inclusion, if we are engaged, then we will find solution among the multitude of things that were not created for them. But nevertheless, such tools can foster inclusivity, including digital activities. And I have a comment, not to your question, but something I'm building on something Robert had said, because today I've heard so many wonderful ideas and I don't want to forget them. I think you have some special relations with Robert today in this session. You have special connection. Just something he said, it gave me an idea. We work with autistic kids and we have tutors. And it's not just a babysitter, it's a guide, a mediator between a special child and the typical world. And this tutor is like an adapter. It connects to different sides. And mentorship or tutorship in the digital sphere, I think it should be done not by AI. So when you look for a book and AI suggests you buy a sofa, so context add. But you need people, not AI, and the tutors, the navigators that will connect different people to a certain level of culture, because culture is digitalized to a large extent. But we need people who will create personal recommendations. We see now that AI is wonderful, but human without another human will be lost in the digital sphere. So there should be opinion leaders for whom inclusion will be one of the top issues on the agenda. Yes, among other things, but it can also just be support. Yes, social networks maybe prompted us to select certain things. Many things were digitalized during the pandemic, but our scope of attention didn't get bigger. We had to choose among a greater variety what film to watch, what book to read. And we started asking other people, I have 3 hours for online. What should I spend these 3 hours on? You're right. So we have just a couple of minutes left, and my last question will be to Robert. In your opinion, how should cultural institutions create high quality and at the same time inclusive and ethical product? Can you name 3 elements that are a must, that should be in such programs? What are 3 must things?
It's fair. Find them. Because I feel now like the God who said, yeah, this is important, this is important, this is important. Of course, anytime when we learn our children, we have trying to say what is good or what is not good, what is beautiful, what is not beautiful. But we don't exactly know what kind of shape is beautiful for us and what kind of shape is beautiful for our children. Like Ekaterina said, we just open the doors, we have the tools like said Sophia, and we just only to push little bit to this creative space, and then we just little bit try to navigate together. Yeah, doesn't matter that we are all old timers or young timers, but we are huge family now front of technology, and we can try to mix our experience. And then we have maybe this open experience, and then we are now equal together in this sphere, this area. Maybe this is the answer. I'm not sure that I said 3 important points, but I'm sure that I opened the discussion.
Мы чувствуем, Роберт, что вы...
Well, we see that Robert is does some mind searching here with us, looking inside himself. And this is probably what we need to do ourselves. We need to ask ourselves what is necessary for other people. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I realize that there are many unresolved issues and questions, but at least we started the discussion. And probably our viewers will have some follow-up questions and additional things to ask. And I'm sure that if you have something to ask, I mean the viewers, you can ask your speakers. They will be glad to help you. And you can use both international experience and Russian experience, because we have also our relevant experience. Keep on doing what you're doing, realize your inclusive projects, and don't be afraid to fail. And that is important. I think this concludes our meeting very nicely. Our next discussion within Culture 2.0 will take place on November the 12th. It will be an interesting discussion. Thank you all for coming. Take care. Goodbye.